Hello, Loveland. I'm Mike Meldon, and this is your Loveland Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Gina Dubell-Smith, eXp Realty, and Stone Pillars Farm. As I'm sure you're all aware, election season is now in full swing here in Loveland. And over the next few weeks, you're going to hear more about this election season from all the different candidates that are running for Loveland City Council. Today is another double feature. You will first hear my conversation with Council Candidate Lynn Zuch. We will discuss her life here in Loveland as well as her career that seems to line up well with a council seat. Then you will hear the second half of my conversation with political commentator Ryan Kulik. We discuss such issues as term limits, and we ask whether or not the end truly justifies the means. So, without further ado, here are my two conversations, starting with Lynn. Enjoy. Today is Monday, September 29th, 2025.
Thank you for having me, Mike. My name is Lynn Zuch. I'm glad to be here today to tell you a little bit about myself. It's kind of an unusual background. I grew up in New Hampshire. And when looking for colleges, colleges in New Hampshire or in New England are very expensive. Yeah. And my dad was a pilot for Delta. And at that time, Delta had a hub in Cincinnati. So he was flying out of Cincinnati. And so he started asking fellow pilots and other people he worked with about schools around here. And I wanted to study architecture. And so we learned about the different schools in this area, and I ended up going to Miami for architecture. So studied there, and that's where I met my husband. So my parents say, never let your daughter go away.
Right.
To college.
They lost you.
Yes,
yeah, they lost you.
I don't think they expected me to
I'm scared to death of that too. Yeah.
So I was very happy when my daughters ended up
a
spy. Met my husband at Miami, and after I graduated, lived in the Cincinnati area for a while, kind of actually down by UC and Ludlow, and but we had an opportunity to move to Columbus for Brent's work, and I went up there and worked actually for a little stint at the State Historic Preservation Office. Okay. And then I decided I said, can we stay long enough for me to go to grad school? And went to Ohio State for city and regional planning. Cool. And while I was at Ohio State, I interned at the Ohio Department of Development. So that was another good state agency experience. When I graduated, we were really at a point of, okay, we're going to be making a decision here if we're staying in Columbus or if we feel we want to be somewhere else. Brent grew up in Loveland, and so we had yes. Okay, nice. So he grew up in Loveland, graduated Loveland 85. They just had a class reunion. Nice. He went in the Navy, so he's older than me. So I'm not giving away my age. When we really were looking, and it's a common thing, we wanted to figure out. We decided we wanted to be back in the Cincinnati area. Columbus just wasn't. We just felt more at home here, and then it was. Well, where we know we want to start a family, where do we want to live and start our family? And the answer became Loveland. So we have been here.
What year? So
1999 is when we moved. Yes.
I was 98. So right from college and then coming.
So you were, because I had gotten glimpses of Loveland, obviously visiting Brent and his family. But the difference between Loveland then and now has been,
I was talking to somebody the other day.
Amazing to watch.
Somebody, I said, do you remember where the apartments are downtown? And it was a parking lot. We'd have like farmers markets and stuff there. But I asked him, I said, do you remember when they had for a summer, it might have been 2 summers, the trapeze?
Oh,
He did not remember. And then he's like, I can remember that. But he's like, I don't know how. He's like, I would have never remembered that if you didn't tell me. And it looked like you had that look on your face too. That was crazy.
Yes.
I mean, just how there was really nothing downtown. You had a couple restaurants, but then we had a trapeze freaking learning how to do trapeze in the middle of town.
And what I remember, so we bought our first house on Wall Street, so it was within walking distance of downtown, and we're young, we're still, and we remember like, well, what can we walk to? And it was Tequila Jack's.
Yes,
was
Tequila
the
Jack's.
only place downtown.
Yeah, that's it. And that was Paxton. That's Paxton's now.
Yes, that's Paxton's now. And then otherwise, it was kind of insurance offices and some like thrift stores and different things.
Realty group, I think maybe. Yeah, that's so funny.
And I think and the Works, where the Works is now, I think it either at that time or shortly after was empty.
Yeah, it was like a storage for the city.
And
I think
it was the city who wrote an RFP asking for someone to come and develop, and Scott Gordon came in and did the works, and that really was...
Yeah, it really was. That was
one of a starting of a really blossoming...
Getting people to come down there and pay
I
attention.
think the Rails to Trails bike path did a lot, and was a key factor. But yeah, it's been amazing to watch the... Especially transformation
through your eyes, because that's you, right? That's your...
Right.
Why don't you explain your career and what you do?
So, after graduate school, my career has been mostly as a planner that has worked for architectural engineering firms. Okay. And my work, so I've done about 20 years in architectural engineering firms. I also spent 4.5 years at a metropolitan planning organization. So it was Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. That's the Dayton's version of OKI. Okay. So, every large urban area has a regional planning that covers multiple counties, and really looks at the regional transportation plan and the engagement, etc. So it's been, but a lot of my work has been in the architectural engineering industry, and what that has, I've loved it, and it's just given me such a broad depth of exposure and experience to different types of projects and working with different experts. So I work on from the front end planning of community engagement and facilitation to plans, but then I also work on implementation. Yeah. So in my current position, I can be on the front end of the planning, but then also developing capital improvement programs, zoning code update recommendations, doing the design and through construction services of community buildings, parks, streetscape designs, infrastructure. I've even done installation-wide planning for military bases. Huh. And those types of projects have, I always work in multidisciplinary firms. So every project is a team effort with experts. And so you really learn to listen as well as facilitate progress with experts. And so you kind of you're not, you learn to hear people and understand what's important for this to move forward and how it needs to move forward. And that includes understanding how to work with the EPA, ODNR, SHPO, the Corps of Engineers, and all of these other agencies, as well as being able to, understand how you need to advocate grant funding and on the legislature level. And it's been fascinating for me working with local communities, especially after the 2008 recession. Because the 2008 recession really exposed where communities were not strong and that they had not done their financial due diligence. They had not created a strong foundation. And when I was working at MVRPC and we were doing a regional plan, talked to 50 different communities. It was a very large stakeholder engagement process. Resiliency was a top. Yeah. And learning to, and that's also where the common theme of we want a sense of place. We want something unique. We don't want to appear, and that's a part of the resiliency is you have to have strong finances, give your city administration the tools to do what they need to do to keep up infrastructure and maintain the physical aspects of your city. but also to really understand best practices and how to how do you make sure that your community is that unique sense, that has that unique sense of place and finds its own niche and personality, that it's its own and doesn't become a stamp. You know, we see the oversaturation of development, whether it's strip malls or mall. We're seeing the malls being the big issue.
Or parks all looking the same even. For a while there, you know, every park had the same canvas things, you know what I mean? Overhangs,
Right. And we're even seeing it in mixed use development, like, and, you know, kind of like what that, and, you know, so I think it becomes important to understand that developers, they're the first in, they say, hey, this is working. They put it in, they get their money and leave.
Right.
Those types of decisions last decades. I mean, we all see it with the strip malls. So, you know, being cognizant of it's quality over quantity and making sure you're not just doing things for the sake of doing them.
It sounds like you're set up for this position. I mean, everything, working with other people but just your career, my goodness. I'm thinking in my mind the whole time you're talking about that, sounds so interesting to me. How, and this is going back because I want to find out why you're running, but I'm going backwards. What made you want to get into this? Like, how did you know this as a career? Because it interests the heck out of me. It's almost like, but even as a teacher, I'm not pushing kids in this direction. How did you know this existed?
It was when I was in architecture school, a professor had a program to travel to Europe for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I actually had a few professors. But this particular professor, each professor kind of had their focus and specialty. And one of his studios in school was about urban planning. And I traveled to Europe with him, and we just went to all these different areas, and you really saw, and one of the messages was, when they said master architect, they actually meant everything. It meant the buildings, it meant the streetscape, it was more encompassing. Yeah. It meant your community, how you planned your
Right, because I'd never thought of it like, think of it that way.
You know, like, you know, if you look at Washington, D.C. was one of the, formally designed cities with the, you know, the monuments and the path. You know, there's so many examples of great, beautiful planned cities. But that professor also did a lot of work in over the Rhine and you know, had an understanding of what it means about to be in an urban environment and community. And it's more than just architecture. And so it was I was looking at grad school, and I was at Ohio State, and I toured their architecture school. Because Miami's a little different than UC. You have to, it's a 4-year degree. You have to get your master's, be a registered architect. Gotcha. Whereas UC has a 5-year program. It's a different, anyways.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay.
I happened to just walk in. I saw the city and regional planning program, and I talked to a professor there, and we just sat down for an hour and just started talking. And he actually was one of the first directors of the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and it was just very inspirational, that aspect. And planners can go many different directions, but with my architecture background, I've always been more lean to the built environment, but with the complete understanding of all the people involved, from the community, from the stakeholders, to all the mover and players of what that takes. And I think one of the things is really being able to see, kind of look at best practices and question things.
Sure.
Does this work?
Well, that's what I was going to say, right.
Where are the traps? Is this where we want to go?
You've been working with all these people and involved with it. Is that kind of what is this? I mean, obviously your career, is this a logical, almost like next step to be on that other side and planning it?
Yes. Yeah. I think in part, so I was on the comprehensive planning committee with John Hart, and I felt that was, the comprehensive plan what its intent is you hear from the community and you understand the vision and what are the top goals. And so I really feel like we're in that stage of implementing that, and I want to be a part of that. And I also want to be a champion for that, because that is something that I feel you need champions in your community that want to say, yes, this is what we heard. What can we do to implement? It's never as easy going as...
No. Well, and I remember watching those meetings with you guys, and then you guys had the open houses, right, where you went over it. So this is just a question. It's not about... I mean, you helped develop the plan. How long was that plan, and this is going off subject again, but you're bringing up points. How long was that plan meant to be implemented?
So it was in 22.
Yes.
And so we're about 3 years out.
Yep.
And they have made headway on short-term goals. One is, I know the planning and zoning is starting work again with the firm that did the comprehensive plan on the zoning code update. That is one of the most important tools to update,
to move forward,
because you need to have your regulations in place that clearly outline the vision, so that developers or anybody who comes, they know, similar to they're starting a new zoning district by Nisbet, which is for along Railroad Avenue, more appropriate zoning code for the scale of houses and building there. So it's very clear to developers. We only want 2.5. 3 stories, this type of set. We don't need the Loveland Avenue.
And we don't have to keep going. We don't want the public uprising each time either, and getting angry and upset. Here are the rules that we want. This is what we want.
Need, those tools. And, the committees have been doing what they should be doing to say, nope.
They have,
We don't want that. The Scheidlmeyer property is another good example. Nope, we don't want that. So I think there is... and you can even hear it with all the candidates. I think there's clarity on what is important to people in Loveland. The comprehensive plans, and I think that's one of the reasons I want to get involved. Implementation of them is actually something that's very, very difficult because it you have to start gaining momentum, and it takes a few years to start, but also looking at, how do we create a better, how do we create a structure to make sure we kind of stay on track? And you have to, in part of the comprehensive plan is every, 5 years you update, you refresh, you kind of revisit.
See where you're at.
See where you're at.
I was wondering, maybe we could even have, you guys did the planning committee, maybe there'd be a implementing committee, to kind of just see where we're at and keep it on. And there has been a lot. I mean, I remember just the sidewalks and the changing of the road down there, and we had to pivot from the garage to the lot, but those have been major changes, you know, and beneficial. Makes people a lot safer to walk down there with the lot, and everybody looking for a spot now. So there have been things going on, and I know Nisbet is now coming up, hopefully here with. They're going to be making the changes there that they need to do.
And they're looking at the roundabout on Loveland Madeira and improving that corridor, the Chestnut property. So I do think there has been a lot on. And we also have to realize our city is small. Our budget is small. We are, but we're not a township. We have to provide all the city services. So I think a part of the implementation too is it's never going to go as fast as we want it to, because we need to be smart about providing our city administration and our the people who are doing the day-to-day running of our city have the tools they need, and they're still keeping that.
And we don't want to put ourselves in, like what you said, the cities found themselves in 2008.
Because this, it's one of those things like you don't want to grow or do something that gets you in a and so I think some of these steps that are coming up of really making sure our regulations are set, and that we everyone's on the same page, and and I applaud everyone that has on council who have said no and who have made these efforts, but I do want to be a part of that implementation. And
that's awesome. All right, so now we're going to take a minute, and as we wrap it up, why don't you just speak directly to the voters of why they should vote for you?
First, I want to thank everyone for their, really their consideration. It's, for me, the community of Loveland has been an important part of our family. I've raised my kids here. Brent and I are planning to stay here for a long time, and I want to continue to be a part of our city and contribute back and give back to what this city has given my family. And I really do think I want to bring to the table my expertise, but also be a support and really be a champion for what the community wants in this city. Because I think there are a lot of things that people hold dear, and there's a lot of wonderful things about this community that we just really want to make sure we protect and then develop and grow in the right way. Quality over quantity. One of the things that I have found fascinating over the years in some projects is the number of communities when you go to community engagement and they say, well, what do you want to be like? How many say we want to be like Loveland?
I bet, yeah.
So there's something about the, making sure we keep that charm of where we've come, where we are now, but how to enhance it and really be stewards of what our community has to offer.
This is my frustration, and I appreciate all the nice things you said about Eye on Loveland, but that was designed to be a flamethrower.
Yeah.
And flamethrowers burn out quick. And they singe a lot of stuff around them.
Yeah.
And it was, at the time, I felt good about it, but it's a different political climate.
Sure.
And it requires a different hand. And people like you, and there's been some others that have come in that have, I think sometimes when you take a positive approach, people see that and they think, why can't we have more of that? And that's where the change starts to come.
Sure.
And I do think of people like Deidre Hazelbaker, who was a citizen who wanted to give back to her community. This is a term I always use. There are two types of people. They're the ones that go over a pothole and say, government needs to do something about that.
Right.
And the ones that go over the pothole and say, I'm going to do something about that. Those second people, those are the ones you want in government. These are the ones that want to solve a problem. And Mike, it sucks running for office. It's brutal.
Yeah.
It takes I tell people you have to learn how to have a turtle shell. You have to learn how to protect yourself, but go somewhere that you can get centered. It's rough. And I feel like, and I don't know, I've never talked to Deidre or any of those other people except Todd Osborne. I often get a feeling, or at least in Deidre's last run, Ms. Hazelbaker, sorry, I don't want to be rude, that had a very kind of West Wing attitude, like government is a purpose, is a calling, and all this other stuff. We don't live in a West Wing world. We live in a Veep world. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's brutal. It is. Politics is a brutal business.
Yes.
Running for office is brutal.
Yes.
And I have been accused, rightfully so, of using some rough tactics. And I think you need to understand that, they're going to come after you, but you don't have to be mean. You don't have to call people names, but you have to know that, yes, so-and-so may be a good person, but they're not a good servant. They're not a good steward of what you're doing, and you have to define that. You have to say what it is. For Kip Ping, John Hart, Adam Jarenick, Lynn Zuch, there's a movie, Wag the Dog, that came out in the 90s. And the joke was that the current sitting president won the race because he had a commercial where it said, don't switch horses mid-race or something like that. It's like treading water. It's like, hey, don't you feel good now? Let's keep the same people in charge. So it's easy for them. If Ms. Hazelbaker and her group do not define a point that they are failing the citizens of Loveland, I don't think they have. I think it's going to be tough for them. Now, the greatest thing about being a political prognosticator is nobody cares if you're wrong. So I could be all wet, but I'm telling you this because obviously we're talking on your podcast, but I think people need to understand that while it may feel well, we're treading water, but the water's getting higher. The water's getting higher, and I'm getting frustrated in my own community that I'm not hearing those bold ideas. I would rather you I'd rather you. Baseball's a great example of this. If you hit 3 of 10 balls you face your entire career, you are a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
So make these swings. Go out there and be bold. And if you get a little pushback, if Dave Kennedy, I think, has done a fine job, but he needs to be pushed. Okay? That's the city manager's job, is to do their job. City council's job is to throw up that home run ball, is to figure that out.
I love that. I love that idea of just looking at the person, seeing their goal, and like you said, pushing for that. Now, we talked about running on teams. Seeking party endorsements. We are in a political climate like no other. And I know that I've gotten to some personal conversations with friends of mine that are running about whether this is, a good thing or a bad thing. I don't want to dive too deep because we could get into, I don't want to talk about national politics.
Yeah.
I just want to say, personally, I'll just tell you, my opinion is I don't like it. I feel like you do not have to declare yourself in a local election. I love the idea of keeping national politics out. A lot of it does not come to play here. We saw what happened in Mason and Lebanon when they let national organizations come in and say, push their agenda there. And we are lucky enough that hasn't really happened here yet. But if you're seeking party endorsements, you're saying something that, hey, I support what's going on out there wholeheartedly, and maybe I'm listening to them. And I'm talking about both parties, to be honest. I don't know your take. We have not talked about this. What is your take on this?
I'm going to give you my citizen and strategist answer.
Good, yeah.
It's when you go in to vote, there's no party affiliation behind the person's name. So the fact that they feel like it's important to have a party endorsement disappoints me. But on the realistic side, a few years back, the Ohio Republican Party with the legislature changed it so certain judges did have party affiliation behind their name, mainly Supreme Court justices. And at the time, the endorsed Democrats had control of the Ohio Supreme Court. Since the legislature in Columbus and the Ohio Republican Party has done that, they've taken all the Supreme Court seats back except one. And that person's probably going to lose in the next cycle. So it doesn't matter, absolutely. Ohio's a red state, and they decided people now will blindly vote for the R, or there are people that obviously blindly vote for the D, and that's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing. But from a strategist side, it is. Now, having said that, Tim Butler did not get the endorsement last time.
Yeah.
And I know in that election, Councilman Ted Phelps, he was the only one really, it's called the pink ticket, the Republican endorsed ticket.
Yeah, when you're walking in,
Yeah.
there will be somebody standing outside that'll say, here's the party. So it does help. It's maybe not there when you go on the ballot.
No.
But when you walk in, they'll hand you something.
Councilman Vice Mayor Phelps came for. So do I think it really works a lot? There are people in the past who have won against the Republican endorsement, and I'm just saying Republican now because that's who is endorsed. And for people just to know, it's Kip Payne, Lynn Zuch, Adam Jaranek, and John Hart. Now, that's my PG answer.
Yeah.
You want my R answer? People,
Sure.
you can come see me at Cappy's or Paxton's or something. I will happily tell you exactly how I think that can be. You use a national identity to really hurt them, because while I said Loveland is still fairly red, voted for Trump, it also voted for the abortion amendment in the Ohio Constitution.
Well, I've seen numbers right now, looking lately. It's really close. Like, I've looked at the last couple. I mean, it is like 48-52 close.
So that's what I mean. The endorsement, I don't know if it holds as much power. I'm just disappointed that it's still happening.
I think that's where I'm at. I'm in a disappointed part.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like to see it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wish. This is going to come down to another thing, and this is a philosophical thing, and I'd like your thing. And I wasn't even planning it. It's not on my notes. The end justifies the means. You're a political strategist. So you're going to have two takes probably here. I'm not.
No.
I'm a citizen. I hate that. I think Hitler's the guy that went by that idea. They give. But I hate somebody that tells me I'm a politician and the end justifies the means. To me, that makes me sick. That is what a dirty politician looks like to me. Yeah. But are they wrong? I mean, honestly, their job is to win. So
yeah, it is. It's so they even go a little bit more political philosophy because everybody's coming here for political philosophy. Mm-hmm. There's the whole Machiavellian: is it better to be feared than loved? Mm-hmm. And I know when I was in school, you're posed with that question, and you're always felt like, well, it's better to be loved. I mean, come on, honestly, yes. And then I remember my professor said something. Do you not speed because you love the cops?
Right.
And it's like,
no,
oh yeah,
I'm scared.
Yes, and so there's a certain sense of governance if you're afraid of something that may happen. The whole ends justifies the means, and you will hear that from people a lot. Mm-hmm. You will hear that they're going to run a brutal election to get in power, but they're going to make.
But I'll be different when I get there.
Yeah, right. I don't believe in that concept, and again, I'm going to use our current administration. They got in a very rough election year. Yeah. Kathy Bailey was made mayor in and it was a war in that both sides were shooting each other. Those of us that are wearing our metaphorical medals from that war, remember it.
Yes.
And the idea was, well, now we're going to do good. But what I think the problem was, what happened is they never asked for forgiveness. They asked for forgetfulness. And people don't forget. Mm-hmm. And it becomes when you spend your time, when you get into power in those kind of means, and then you spend the rest of the time trying to make every problem a PR problem. Look, I agree with you. People that are out there grandstanding, it can get tiring. Mm-hmm. But when you see the relentlessness coming at these people, not just in the council chambers. I remember I brought somebody to a council meeting one time, and they said the mood in there was dark. And that's a problem. And is the current administration, I think my current issue with the Mayor Bailey administration is there's no discussion about anything. And I go back to those big, bold ideas. We need to solve problems. Mm-hmm. We have been talking about Chestnut for a decade, okay? And I have my beliefs of what's going to happen there, but you know what I know? I don't know what the city of Loveland is going to say. They had some public meetings with some fancy, expensive graphics and things like that, but I still don't know what's going to go there. I don't know what's happening to that trash dump. Grailville seems to go through, and Grailville is a model of citizen engagement.
Yes,
what happened there, I give those people all the credit in the world, but the city of Loveland, I have yet to know what's going on. I drive down Loveland Madeira and I see $800,000 empty nest condos, and I'm like, that's the problem. Okay, and we talk about connection fees and all this other stuff. Something that I did talk a lot about near the end of Eye on Loveland is all this money we gave for the sewer that we were going to build out to this Homerama property. I don't think half of those lots have been developed yet. So when I was talking about, look, even though they'll tell you it's going to be paid back, it's going to take 100 years.
Right.
We have a city who gladly voted, I think, Councilman Butler's on council then, so maybe 6-1 or 7-0, to give away taxpayer dollars to a private developer that did not have a full plan. This is what I'm talking about. So when they do quote, and I'm not saying we haven't seen the politics of it all yet, but when you say that they do dirty things in order to do good things when they get there, I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah, that's where I think that's where when you get the nastiness of politics coming into play. I don't know. They feel like they're able to wash it off, but I don't see it ever washing off. I don't think you should I don't think you should sell your soul to get something. I've just never lived that way, and some people can, and some people do. All right, we're going to go to a touchy subject here that I completely agree. And again, this is against no one on council. Please understand that. This is something I've always believed in. And I know Mason has it. I talked to Mason's mayor, and she's very right and believes in it big time, but it's term limits. And I don't know, we've not talked about this. I don't know your thoughts on it. So what do you think about term limits?
I have spent a life where I've evolved very, very heavily on term limits. And
back and forth?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But as you get older and as you...
wiser.
Yeah, do more work and stuff, you start to see things. And we are not the same country that we were 10 years ago. We're not the same country we were 20 years ago. And my big concern, and I've articulated this a few times, is the fact that we're not building houses for families. So I think that we don't have the will or the thought in our current government to solve one of the biggest problems that's happening right now. And it is wide known that this is a big problem. And I don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but in the public meetings that you can see that I have watched, I don't hear City Manager Kennedy talking about it.
Well, I know, and this might be something that will make people mad.
Yeah.
It was dismissed as Section 8.
Yes, no, right.
It was dismissed as saying, "Oh, you're just talking about Section 8."
Yeah, and that's exactly. Yeah.
And whether they knew better or not, either way is frustrating.
If I was any council member running right now, one of my top things I'd tell people is we're going to create a citizens committee to address the housing crisis in Loveland. That is so important. It is the most frustrating thing for me because, again, that can be directly related to the schools and the funding issues we have at the schools. Something, and this is a much bigger topic to be discussed, but it's something I do want to bring up. The Ohio legislature is really harming our public schools funding mechanisms right now, like they've been forever. And the biggest thing, though, is this was a report in the Inquirer recently about school vouchers. So they have universal school vouchers. Anybody can take property taxes away from their
regardless
their
of
community
income,
schools, and give it to a private school. So the three biggest communities in the area who have been taking the vouchers, one was Loveland. But here's the thing, enrollment in Loveland schools was not going down. So what was happening, or what is happening right now,
is the people that are already attending.
Exactly.
I didn't even think of it until you're saying it. They're already attending, saying, "Why wouldn't I take this money?"
Right. So if you are a city council, and I know this is going to be a tough one for Councilman Hart and candidate Jaranek, they both have some ties to the schools. Adam Jaranek's wife is on the school board, and Councilman Hart works for the schools. And John, if you're listening, my son absolutely adored you while he was at
There you go.
But they should use that as an asset. They should use that as, look, yes, we have these ties to the schools, but we want to use our ability not to enlarge the school, but to enlarge the community through our communities, our schools. Our schools are... it is tiring to me that schools have become an economic decision to everybody. It's not an economic decision. It is the primary positive force in your community. So this is I know you're asking about term limits, but my point is there has to be a change in philosophy. Now, every politician I've ever met, when they're running for office, talks about how much they love term limits. And then when they're in office and they're running for their fourth term, they tell me,
Heck no.
Yeah, they tell me, oh, well, not enough people are running for office. And I say that to two things. First off, we have at least 8 people running for council. I haven't seen if there are more than that, but at least 8 for 4 council seats. So don't tell me that. That is the biggest sorry, don't say stupid. That is the biggest misinformation that you'll hear from a politician because they don't want to vote themselves out of office. They don't. That is number one thing. But there has to be an understanding that there must be a force that changes the philosophy in our government. There has to be. Our government tends to be, and again, I'm going to use Loveland as an example, filled with people in one particular industry that are older. Thankfully, I believe Councilman Hart, candidate Jaranek, and I know Councilman Bateman, I believe are younger than me. I just turned 50. Okay, we need to get younger to solve these problems. We need the millennial generation and to start solving these problems. So if you have term limits, it forces that. And let's say only 3 people ran this election for 4 seats, but we were term limited out. There's a mechanism where the mayor can appoint that next seat. And at least you're getting somebody new in there. And what happens all the time...
And you can run again. The thing is, too, term limit, you can, like the mayor that I was talking to in Mason, she was excited about coming back, taking time off. You know what I mean? Because I guess it matters how you write it in the...
No, right, but most of it
would allow you to come back. And if that's what you want to do, then great, and people can have the chance to elect you back. And not that... I get it. Term limits are people... the big argument that I had when I was talking to people, and some people we've just talked about, is, well, the people are putting you in each time.
Yeah.
I get that. But we all know the amount of people that are truly involved and educated in what's going on. And so if people really want to move forward, I believe you need a break. And it was just about the thing you talked about before, the goals.
Yeah.
Is you don't know what you're not doing, right? So if you take a step off for a couple of years, and you might say, hey, oh my gosh, I miss this and I really want to come back and do this. I think it changes a mentality.
It's always my dream, but I know logistically it's very difficult. But there's some communities, especially older New England communities, that whenever they need like a government decision, everybody in the community comes together and they elect a council to fix that solution. And then that council is dissolved.
Kind of like a committee,
and
yeah.
the next time
That's awesome.
keeps coming in. And it's this concept of the idea that you need the right people for the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I don't think we're getting, especially here in Loveland, which is why we have the same essentially retail restaurant-based economy that we have. You look at certain areas, it seems, again, I know they keep telling me they're going to do something on Loveland Madeira Road, but it's not happening yet. I know we're getting grants and we're getting this and we're getting that. And it's like, but it's not happening. I don't see it. But I do see a third different restaurant being put into the same spot in the last few years. And it's like, there's this over attention to downtown as a entertainment district. And it's like, look, that business is falling down. That if you are a developer and you're looking at like creating a retail spot, you got to know we are in a retail apocalypse right now economically. You have to know restaurants are closing rapidly because people aren't going out because they're becoming very aware of their costs. The last thing we need to put in Loveland is another restaurant that costs a family $100 to eat at. That is, we need bolder ideas, but when you have the same philosophy, honestly, Mike, going on for 6 years now, it's not going to change.
And I think the thing is they can rest on their laurels, right? I mean, a lot of times they can. That they're not. I think the problem is they think, what have I done wrong? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying anybody.
No.
You may not have. Great, but what is a new idea you got? And again, this is not personal. I'm not like thinking of it. Nobody is in my mind right now. I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for all 4 guys that are on either ticket. But I'm just being philosophical here in that this can change things. It can shake things up. So how do you get a change like term limits? How does that get the ball rolling?
Yeah.
How do you do that? I know Tim Canada was trying to do that, and it was like shot down immediately. What do we need to do?
Yeah, in Loveland it's pretty simple. You can get it as a charter amendment.
Okay.
And I know I was involved in some of those efforts, and when they were redoing the charter, we were asking to put it in, but that's when I was told none of the people run for council.
And it seemed very personal, I think, at that time.
It
was very. I think it can't be personal.
It was, and Tim Canada, who rest in peace, I had a lot of discussions with him. I'm at heart a strategist. Those people that know me because I was out in the public eye or whatever, that's not what I tend to do. I always use a line from Jerry Maguire about how you see the athlete with the big check and the picture in the paper. I'm the person that has their arm around him, and you just see his arm. I prefer to do that. I love doing stuff like this. I love talking about this stuff, but we want leadership. We strive. We crave for leadership. We want to feel like our government. There's 2 problems right now. I think we want to like our government. One of my favorite songs ever, a Talking Heads song called Don't Worry About the Government. And the lyrics are basically like, the civil servant works for me. They're nice people. They work in that building. I like that building. It's a nice place. That's our romanticized vision, that we think our city council is sitting down with the city administration and they're just thinking, what can we do the best for Loveland? Like, what can we do? That's kind of our dream, so to say. But we crave, I'm trying to stay away from national politics, but I have to bring this up. People don't feel comfortable. A lot of people don't. And I'm not making this a Republican-Democratic issue. I mean a lot of it. We've had a lot of turmoil over the last decade, a lot of anxiety in this country. You and I both have children we're raising, and I'm sure everybody's children, even people that don't. I have older parents. I have in-laws, things like that. We think about this, and we think about our world, and we just want things to be good. We just want things to be better. What I think we are lacking is that empathetic leadership.
Yeah.
It is, I get frustrated I do a lot of work, a lot of business in the city of Cincinnati. I love the city of Cincinnati. I'm not from here. This might be the most controversial thing ever said on your podcast. I'm not a big fan of La Rosa's or Skyline,
Ouch.
but I love the La Rosa's here though. They got great salads, so I didn't eat there. But I love Cincinnati, and it broke my heart to hear all the negative stuff being said about the city the last few weeks, and I got defensive about it. But I was really upset that the mayor of Cincinnati and the city council were not being positive. There is recently the Sundance Film Festival was going to relocate, and it was like being talked about here in Cincinnati, and we didn't get it, and that was frustrating. But I heard one of the leaders of it saying, I don't feel like this is a loss because we were considered. Because this is a great city. Loveland, I feel the same way about it. I chose to live here. We had our options. I liked the community. I liked all this stuff. And I feel like we are just stagnating, that we're not being bold, that we're not moving forward. And I would commend the next politician here in Loveland that said, it's what President John Kennedy said about going to the moon. We're not doing it because it's easy. We're doing it because it's hard.
Right. Exactly.
And that's how problems are solved, and we're getting none of that.
And I think your message isn't saying, hey, we need a new slate of people. You're saying even if it's the slate that's on, look at things different, right?
Mike, I want to say this.
Yeah,
it's
we're not
very important. To me. If any of the current council members, if Councilman Andy Bateman, Councilman Kit Ping, Councilman John Hart, who are up for re-election, or Andy's not up for re-election, sorry, but I want them. This is what I want them to hear. I want them.
But
to
Andy too. You want him to hear this
I
too,
do
right?
Want, I do want them all. I want Mayor Bailey to say it. And I think Mayor Bailey is a strong leader. They follow her.
Yeah.
And that is an admirable quality. So when I talk about boldness, she has her boldness. But there are 6 other council members, and I want those other 6 to they get their infinity gauntlet. And instead of doing something terrible, they get to do that one thing for Loveland. If I'm going to build a statue to John Hart, why?
I love it.
And that's what I want. I want to hear that boldness. And if they want to go in, if Councilman Hart and candidate Jaranek and Councilman Ping and candidate Zuch want to come in and say, this is our grand goal. This is what our administration is going to do. Fine.
Yeah.
I just want it.
Yeah. That's great. And we want that from everyone running.
Yes, we do.
Everyone running.
Right. And this is the little last bit of advice I'd give to Hazel Baker and the people running with her, because they are running on a slate. And like I said, I don't like it as a citizen, but that's the strategy of it all. You've got to have that bold vision. You have got to have, even if you don't like his politics or things like that, you've got to have that Bernie Sanders of, there's a problem, we're going to fix it. How? We're going to fix it. The reason why Bernie Sanders has huge rallies, the reason why President Trump had huge rallies is because they promised solutions. Now, Mike, I can hear everybody yelling right now, so I'll stop there on the national politics.
That's great. All right, let's. I want to end on this. We haven't really got into this yet, but I'll tell you, it feels different. It feels different. I thought, and God rest her soul, Miss Settel, that recently passed away. I looked at a slate coming from that end, from that group, which is a very much opposing group, right? And why do I say that? I say that because a lot of the people that we're working with, that is on the other slate, are very well connected with. There's not a ton of animosity here, right? I think everybody would agree to that. Yes, they're running against each other, but it's not a history of animosity. No. Why do you think it's different now? Why do you think there's not this other group? We're going to end on this one, but what do you think?
I mean, I've always hoped for, and I've seen this in my career, where I really worked with people running for office the first time. So a lot of times it's municipal office, state house, things like that. That's kind of where I focused my career on. And it's because I like working with that new politician. I like working with that person that wants to fix the pothole. They have all the idealism in the world. And they haven't been jaded and crushed by the entire process. And I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. And there's an episode early on where Krusty runs for Congress because he's going to stop they're going to build like a highway through the Simpsons house or something. Or no, it was airplanes were going over. And he was going to do that to help citizens. That's why he was going to run for office. And then he gets in D.C. and realizes how nothing gets done. you have to do this and this and this. And this is just jadedness, this frustration. You go back to the Mr. Smith goes to Washington, that kind of concept. And so I look at these people that run, and I think of them as being idealistic, that they want to climb, that this is a step to the next place. This is where they go next. When we talk about term limits, I did want to bring this up. He's retired now, but long-time political just whirlwind, Bill Seitz, who for 20 years, 30 years, he would go from the state house to the Senate, and just go back and forth. And he retired. And I personally like Bill Seitz a lot.
West Sider. He's a
yes,
West Sider.
yeah. He, Bill Seitz was a powerhouse, was a whirlwind. And all the way up to the end, he's teaming up with Democrats to create legislation that will help pay kids in urban public schools to get good grades.
That's awesome.
And he was still solving problems. And he said he's old now. He would have run re-election wherever he went, but he's like, I'm old now. I'm going to retire. I think he's like 70 or something like that. One of the greatest quotes ever. If you were a journalist in Columbus, you always would. I knew friends who would just sit outside of his office to get it. But he's still working. He's still doing it. And term limits forced him to go back and forth, but he was still working. He was still trying to make a difference. Even if you didn't agree with his politics, I felt like his heart was in the right
100%.
place. When it came to people like let's call it what it is, the Mark Fitzgerald people and stuff like that, I felt like they didn't want to climb anymore and they were just tired of it and they just wanted to go away. In the case of Ms. Zuch, I do know she was a very, very powerful figure. She had a women's group here in the Loveland area, which was a state powerhouse. She was very close to Vice President Vance, all this other stuff. So maybe she felt like that's where her power was, but everybody else just didn't want to do it anymore. I think some of the dirtiness of the politics, and I can just tell you this from Loveland, has turned a few people away, maybe good people that we should have run. And I'll end on this one here. That's where I give Ms. Hazelbaker a lot of credit. I have not, and I'm going to actually give Ms. Hamlin a lot of credit too. And Todd Osborne, again, don't know much about, I'm going to say it wrong again, but Doherty?
Oh, Jim Delmar.
Delmar. Sorry, Jim.
No, you're good.
I'd love to sit down and talk with you. But Mr. Osborne, Ms. Hamlin, this was their group. They advocated. Now they're going against them. And I think that's brave. And in the case of Ms. Hazelbaker, she went through it before. She wanted to make a change, didn't get on any committees, and that's not her fault. She applied.
Actually, that was on my sheet to talk about, but we're going to save that for another time.
Yeah, but they're out there, and I think that's good because I think we need some of that new blood. I think we need. A lot of people know that I was very connected through the podcast and stuff with Councilwoman Pam Gross, and I remember she told me a story when she first ran in 2013 that she didn't really know any of those people. She's good friends with Ms. Zuch, but she didn't really know anybody and stuff like that. And just decided one day she was going to run for office and saw, I don't think she was mayor at the time, but saw longtime councilwoman, Loveland legend, Linda Cox. And everybody saw those signs when they ran together. But when she just said, hey, I want to run for council, and they sat down, and it was like, I like that spirit. I like that spirit of people. And every single person that's on the Loveland City Council had that exact same moment at some time. So I guess the short answer to it is, I don't know if people in Loveland that are running right now have that Bill Seitz-like aspiration to just keep climbing and climbing. But those that were in power before, good or bad, people have other opinions, just decided their time was done and let's move on.
Looking ahead in Loveland, want to know where the candidates stand on the issues that matter to you most? The Little Miami Chamber Alliance is holding its City Council Candidate Forum for a chance to hear directly from those running to shape our city's future. It'll be held this Wednesday evening, October 1st, at Loveland City Hall at 6:30 p.m. I hope you can make it. And if you have any events that you would like me to mention here on the podcast, please reach out to lovelandweekly@gmail.com. We have something truly special here in Loveland. Thank you for listening, and have a great week. This episode was produced and engineered by Mike Meldon right here in Loveland. And please note that the opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily represent the views of our sponsors or organization.